Hello, hello, everybody. What is up, HVAC Mac? I see you. I see you. So we have another awesome SkillCat webinar in store for you tonight. It is SkillCat Tuesday, the day we all love. I know it's my favorite day of the week. So we're gonna go ahead and jump off, even though we're waiting for people to join still, but that's okay. Really happy that you guys are here. If you guys have questions, please either put them in the chat or hold on till the end. I always like to give, a few minutes at the end for everybody to ask Louise their questions, and she is awesome at answering them. So ask away. Today, we're going to learn about what you can do with your meter. So we are not going to learn about fixing things or diagnosing with your meter, but just how to read them and what to do if you want to read a certain thing. So I am going to go ahead and let Louise take this one away. You guys, if you have questions for me or for Louise, please put them in the chat or wait till the end and we will go ahead and give you guys a few minutes to ask them. Hey, Louise.
Well, thank you for that introduction. Glad to be here. Hopefully we'll have lots of good information for you as we go through that. Before I get a little too deep, I think it might be a little bit important to know exactly who I am and where I come from in the quickest nutshell that I can possibly do. But I am the National Training Manager for UEI Test Instruments. I've been fortunate enough. I just celebrated actually 9 years with the company, and it's a pretty awesome company to work for. I have to say that, we are still a family-owned business, second generation. So like many of those of you that may be watching today, a family-owned business, which I think is really important. The other really neat thing that my company does is the fact that we manufacture. So all the meters that you see in today's presentation, we actually manufacture, design them, and engineer them in our factory in South Korea. So that's also a nice piece to know where your meters are coming from. But with my background, I was not in the background of HVAC. This was probably the furthest thing that you could ever imagine that I would be in: big box retail, optical, and then I was fortunate enough to come here. What I have learned, though, is that I literally had to start from the ground up, and I had to do the basics, and I had to create training, not only for myself, but I started training others. And then in my sales role, I also started training our reps into going into wholesalers, distributors, and ultimately getting to be out in the field a little bit and really learning a lot more of the applications. From that, though, there were some things that I learned. And there are things that unfortunately get taken for granted in this industry. And some of those things are the basics. So today, I just really want to go through what the basics are on your meters, because I think there are a lot of functions that wind up not getting used. You're like, oh, that sounds good, but where am I going to use it? Or how do I get to it on my meter? Or does my meter even really have everything that I need a meter to do?
Right.
So we're going to just start off right with the basics. Ohm's law. If you know 2 points on the Ohm's law chart, you can calculate out the third.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick because the way that we learn at SkillCat is twinkle, twinkle, little star, voltage equals I times R. So if you have any two of those, you can get the third. And that's what Louise has on the screen here for you guys.
Absolutely. And this just kind of breaks it down to literally what it looks like on the symbols of your meter when we do it this way. Yep. So the good news is while you can calculate all of those, your meter should really be doing that for you. Meters have come a long way over the last, 50 years. And there are a lot more things that we can do with our meters. So with the right meter, you should be able to have one meter that is going to have all of that on there for you. And the great thing about Ohm's law is that we can actually even extrapolate out and we can get into the wheel of electricity. Again, if we know 2 of the points on there, we're able to calculate out the third. So, for example, on this one, if we really wanted to know what our wattage was, we could just take volts times amps, and that is what our wattage is. But there's some important things. So one of the most common things that I think we're going to use on pretty much a daily basis is our amp symbol. So it's that big giant A. And if you have a meter that is at the top or that has a 2-line display, that top line is really dedicated to being at your amp reading. So you can kind of take a look at the meter and you can see that that amp is on the top line. And we're going to be using those amps for a lot of the things that we're testing, right? Because we're going to want to know the running amps. We may want to know like the inrush current, and we'll talk a little bit more about those at the in the middle of this presentation. And then the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at a lot of voltage, which is your big giant V on your meter. And when you're looking at your screen, you want to make sure that you're seeing that low volt symbol. So if you kind of look where I've highlighted here, you're able to see what the volts are. So, you know, when we're doing those control voltages or we're checking an outlet, we're looking at those type of things. So that's where your voltage is going to come in for your meter. But there's a very interesting thing that's going on right now in the industry, right? We're seeing a lot more of DC currents and we're seeing a lot more of inverter technologies coming out there. And if we don't have our meter set on the right setting, so if we're trying to measure something DC, but we have our meter set to AC, are we going to get the right readings?
Absolutely not.
No. So knowing what those look like, because again, those are going to be displayed on your meter. So if it's an AC current, you're going to see your nice wavy line. If you're looking at your direct current, you have your solid line with your 3 different dashes in it. And so then you can also have your AC and DC indication on there. This is literally why I have created this presentation. What does the upside down horseshoe on my meter mean?
The only thing that's not in English, right?
Right. It is your ohms symbol.
Yes.
And ohms are really, really important, right? Because we need to know if something is operating properly. We want to be able to set it on the resistance, and we want to be able to see what that resistance reading is. We want to make sure that we are going to have circuit continuity when we're doing this. So ohms, the upside down horseshoe is your ohms. It is literally the basis, Ohm's law.
Yes.
So when you're looking at your meter and it's a universal symbol, it's not like, you know, every manufacturer has come up with different symbols. These are all universal symbols in the electrical world.
There we go.
One of the most important features that I think every HVAC meter should have is the ability to do capacitance. We're testing.
They all do not, you guys, just so that you guys know, every meter is not created equally. So what Louise is telling you about right now is UEI meters specifically. Obviously, there's some stuff that she's talking about, you know, universally, but not all meters can measure capacitance. So make sure you're looking on your meter to make sure you have the correct one for the work you need to do. And if you don't, go get a UEI.
Love it. Absolutely. Because I will tell you, there are a lot of meters out there that don't offer the opportunity to measure capacitance. And especially, I mean, it is the season of the summer right now. So everybody's running out there. You're making sure that your capacitors are good. If you don't have a meter that can check a capacitor, you're just literally eyeballing it and hoping that it is, even though it doesn't show any signs, that it's running like it's supposed to. Now, I will tell you in a little bit of just disclosure there, on that capacitance symbol, you can see that symbol there. Sometimes I have seen it on a meter where it will say things like MFD rather than the actual symbol, and that MFD is standing for your microfarads.
Yep.
So just so you know, it's either going to have that capacitance symbol that you're seeing in the upper left-hand side, or it's going to say something like MFD. And then when we look at our meter, so this is an auto ranging meter. So if you notice that I have it circled and it actually shows an NF, that's for nanofarad. But as soon as you're applying that to a capacitor and it's in microfarads, it will actually scale itself up. So it's also important to know if your meter is auto ranging or if you can manually range. So the neat thing about this, these are all of our meters are auto or manual ranging. So it makes it a little bit easier. But for most of our applications, the auto ranging is going to work just fine. Now, this is a feature that I think isn't necessarily talked a whole lot about. And again, not all meters have that built in, but inrush current, or sometimes it is abbreviated as your LRA. So when we're looking at those plates, we'll see that it'll show you things like your LRA, and that's your incoming amps. And when you start up, just like when you start up a car, right, it draws a lot more energy to start up that car than when it is just running. The thing about inrush current is that it happens so quickly. You can try to catch it with a meter that maybe has a max feature on it, but sometimes it happens so quickly that your meter won't catch it. So having an inrush current is going to save you a lot of time when you're starting up the equipment and trying to diagnose if there's something going on with it. There are a lot of boards and there are a lot of wiring, and they are getting smaller and smaller and smaller by the day. And so we actually have a feature on our meter that is low Z. Many people also refer to it as low impedance. But when we're working in those very tight spots, what can happen is that you can have ghost voltages. And so what's really happening is it's just kind of jumping and it's reading all that interference.
Right.
So when we're working in those really tight and confined spaces, putting your meter to be able to read low Z when we're measuring voltage will give you a more accurate reading.
And this is so necessary, you guys. I can't tell you how many tech support calls I get per day because people are chasing low voltage shorts and they're getting a bunch of ghost voltage. They're not getting real readings. So, they're like, why am I reading 12, volts on a, 120 volt circuit? Well, you're not. It's ghost voltage. Many meters do not have this feature. And this is why I love my UEI and I take it on all rooftop units because that low Z will save you a lot of time.
It will indeed. And we put it in all of our core meters. The other function that I find is often underused on a meter is actually diode testing. And so when we're looking at the equipment that we're looking at, a lot of them now have actual diode bridges. And knowing, does your meter actually test diodes? Because again, not all meters will test that. And the important thing to know, if you notice that symbol that or that red circle that I have over there that has the diode symbol, these are all things that we're going to be working on, and they're very specifically on the same dial because these are all things that we're going to be using while the equipment is off. We don't want to apply it while everything is live. So, right. But diode testing, it is becoming one of the top things that manufacturers are starting to ask for in the testing to decide if it is actually a bad board or if there's something else not working in the equipment. So that is what your diode symbol looks like. And continuity. I think this is huge, right? So not only do we want to make sure that, a circuit is flowing correctly, we want to test the test leads. Yes. So if you are not regularly testing your test leads, you may be doing yourself a very huge disservice. And it's very
a habit
to do, right?
I do this as a habit. I literally can't use my meter in continuity mode until I've tested my test leads.
And you should, because unfortunately, test leads can break. We throw them in our bags. They get wrapped around things. Yeah. Maybe we've accidentally put them, but if we have our meter set to continuity and we touch the two tips of our leads together, you should get that really nice loud beeping sound that tells you, and then you're good to go. If you don't, you need to check your connections and probably also change your test leads.
Yes.
And I also non-contact voltage. So our core meters all have that non-contact voltage in there, built in right into the tip. It is a separate dial position, but it is always good practice to make sure that if we think we have turned off a circuit, that we have actually turned off the right circuit.
Triple check.
All too often you're going in after somebody else's work. Maybe something didn't get labeled right. Maybe there could be a multitude of reasons, but we want to make sure that if we are thinking something is off and that it is actually off. So with that non-contact voltage, as you start approaching anything that is actually has voltage, it's going to start beeping at you. It's going to make a very audible tone, different than the same tone that you heard when I did continuity.
Right.
But it will alert you in case, and that's just kind of a best practice. Anytime we think that we have shut something off, we still want to make sure that there isn't any electricity flowing to it.
100%.
This is another underused feature, and it is becoming more and more important just because when we start talking about variable speed drives and we're talking about inverter technology, right? So we're converting things from DC to AC and they're going back and forth. And, we want to be able to measure what is that frequency. How fast is it going back and forth? And then how long is it taking it to go back and forth? And a lot of times when we start looking at the manufacturer specs, they are actually calling these out in there as to what we're supposed to be looking at. So being able to diagnose that, it's going to be another one of those big troubleshooting things that we're going to see increasing in our industry.
Yes. You guys really want to have that when it comes to mini splits.
Yes.
Big time.
And then some meters allow you to actually do temperature. So depending on the meters that you have, you can have them. Make sure, best piece of housekeeping. I've fallen guilty of it. I've accidentally switched my meter, but please make sure that when we're looking at our meter, we look at the difference between Fahrenheit and Celsius.
Yep.
I will tell you that our friends to the north, one day I was listening to their news and it kept telling me that it was 10 degrees in the middle of summer. And I was like, oh, that's really cold, until I did the Fahrenheit conversion. So that means it can happen to any of us. But just make sure if you feel like your readings are really, really off, just make sure you have it in that Fahrenheit mode.
I chased a low temp freezer to 0 degrees for a really long time before I was like, duh.
It can get the best of us. So that's why I say make sure that we're paying attention. Is it in Fahrenheit or is it in Celsius? The other thing is you may notice on your meters, some meters, if they have dual temperature, you may see things like T1 minus T2, also known as our delta T. Yep. So if we're using our meter, we want to know like maybe temperature rises or something like that. Some meters will actually allow you to do that.
Yep.
But attached with that temperature, though, you could have two different types of inputs. So most commonly what we see in the industry is you're going to see a K-type thermocouple. Right. So when we're looking at that K-type thermocouple, not only is it going to make it is going to say a K on it. It's going to be in a yellow color, and it's going to have two prongs on it. And just kind of a good thing of housekeeping. So those prongs, those are polarized. We want to make sure that, the bigger prong goes in the bigger hole and the smaller prong goes in the smaller hole.
If it ain't bitten, don't force it.
Them occasionally. I have seen it happen. And then you see two things happen on your meter. One of the first things you may notice is that you are getting 0 temperature or dashes across your screen. The other thing is if you know that you're putting it somewhere that's hotter than the ambient air and you see that temperature going down. Yep. Those are your keys that you may have those reversed. There are thermistors out in the industry. They're a little bit different. They have a little bit smaller range than what you're going to get on your K-type thermocouple. They're definitely slower to respond, but they do have an increased accuracy. So it is important when we're looking at that to know what kind of thermocouple or thermistor we may be using. There's also other basics that you'll see on your meter, such as you may see minimum and the MIN, and that's literally going to capture the minimum while you were testing something. So if you were testing and you wanted to capture what that minimum voltage was, you would put your meter in the voltage mode and you would hit the min button. Conversely, when I was talking about inrush current and it happens so fast, but sometimes we do have irregularities that happen in our power supply. So there is also a max feature. So that max feature is going to allow you to capture the max that happens while you're doing that testing. I also mentioned some meters are auto ranging. So that is usually going to be symboled by your AT. It's also really important to know if your meter has an auto power off or not. So if you see APO and you know that you're going to be using it for a while, you might want to turn that off so it doesn't cut off while you're in the middle of your testing.
Even more so though, I always forget and leave it on in my bag. And then I kill the battery and then I trick the battery because it's cold outside. And then I have to send it back and have the battery replaced. It's a whole thing. So you guys, if you do have it, make sure you shut it off. You're going to be using it a long time, but definitely get one that has that feature.
I too, sometimes I'll throw it in my bag and then I hear it beeping at me that it's going to
Yes.
shut off. And I'm like, where did the beep come from? Yeah. So it does happen to the best of us. Here's one of the most important things, as simple as it sounds. We were just talking about batteries though. If your meter shows low battery, don't wait around, change out those batteries, because I have to tell you, between bad test leads and deficient batteries, those are the number 1 and 2 reasons we get called of my meter isn't working.
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking about it. You remember when I was talking about like the diode testing and the continuity testing and all of that, your meter is generating a signal out. It's not just taking a signal in. Your meter is actually sending a signal out. And when it's doing that, if you have a low battery, you could wind up with some really wonky readings. So make sure that, and if you know it's a tool that you're not going to use for a long period of time, just take your batteries out. But on your daily use ones, if you see that low battery, go change your batteries. Don't wait around.
I keep extras right in my UEI case. That way, if I'm in a freezer, if I'm, testing in the middle of testing equipment, I can just literally grab them out. I don't have to go to the van.
Yes.
We'll trick of the trade. Keep batteries in that pouch.
Yes. And the great thing though, is that we try to use easy batteries like AA's, AAA's, and occasionally a 9-volt. We try to make it as simple. The things that you can buy if you're on the road, you could stop at a gas station or a pharmacy or a grocery store. Not something that needs to be specifically special ordered.
Yeah, it's this thing that I always have to replace them in. I have the, I'm stuck. The UEI manometer.
Yeah.
This one will give you some seriously wonky stuff if your battery is low.
Yes. And that's true of all test instruments. Any test instruments, right? Like if you want to make sure. A few other things that you may see on your meter is you may see a hold button. So if you wanted to capture a value that you saw, you could be able to do that and then walk away and still have it on your meter. And then there are also wireless connections that you may see on your meter. Those wireless connections, depending on the meter, this is a little bit different depending on the manufacturer. A lot of times you'll see like a little wireless symbol right there that could stand for a few different items. But just important to know if you do have that on your meter. We were also talking about resolutions earlier. So we were talking like specifically on capacitors, right? We're going to be looking at a lot of microfarads. But if we start seeing the little m, that's milli, and we see the big giant m, that's our mega. So knowing what range and resolution your meter really is in, because we're testing a small battery, we know that we're going to be wanting to look at things like millivolts. We're not going to be looking at full voltage. And so some meters may make you manually range to get to that, or they may have a separate dial function when we get to those lower levels.
Helpful for tech support too, though, you guys, because if you call my tech support line and you say, I'm reading this in microfarads, but you're not reading the UF, you're reading the big M, you're not giving me microfarads, you're giving me megafarads. So
And that
tech
is going to
support.
be a very small number. So
Yes, make sure I'm getting like 3 and I'm like, no. So make sure that you guys know the difference between those. That's a big one.
100%. So this actually turned out to be one of my favorite things to talk about,
I love
strangely
this
enough.
too.
And I'm going to be honest, this is a whole lot of reading and probably not my finest of slides, but I want to break down. So every meter has a category rating. And I discovered that not everybody kind of knew what those category ratings were and why they were important. So for most of it, I'm going to break this down. So a category 4 meter is designed to work on anything that is basically coming from the power line into the box at the house, okay? Category 3, which is primarily what we're going to be working on in like the residential world. When we're looking at category 3, we're going to be looking at from the fuse box to either the outlet or a hardwired appliance. That's going to be category 3. And then category 2 is going to be from the outlet to the actual appliance. And why are those important? Why do so many manufacturers, why do we put a category 4 rating on our meters? And really what that category 4 rating is going to do for you is it's an extra level of protection.
Right.
So
Your meter
if you
is
only
not
had a
safe from
meter,
everything.
yeah, if you only have a meter that is rated category 3 and something happens, we've seen it. We've all seen something's miswired. We've seen something that has jumped from the power where it's running in a lot higher than what it should be.
Yeah.
Having a category 4 meter is going to help with some of that protection. So
Yes.
just kind of why your meter is rated in different categories. So that's why when you're looking at our meters, you're going to see it'll have like a Cat 4 rating to like 600 volts. And then it'll have like Cat 3 up to 1,000 volts and those type of things. It's important to look at those because I have seen category 2 meters that are out there for people to buy and they think it's appropriate, and that is not safe. It is not safe. So having, hey, you remember when I said the meter? I don't know if you guys could hear that. My meter's beeping at me because I left it on too long.
About those batteries, Louise.
I got to save those batteries, right?
That's hilarious.
But yeah, it was like, oh, it'll eventually happen. I knew I forgot to shut it off. But that's why category ratings, though, are so important. It is a safety feature for you.
Yes.
So when you're buying your meter, and I've seen them, and it scares me because I'm like, if you think you want to be in the HVAC world, you think you want to be in any of the skilled trades, a category 2 meter is just not going to cut it for you.
Right.
So,
And it will be cheaper, which is more appealing. But that's why it's really important that we teach when we're training, that we teach new technicians what the difference is. Because if you do try to use a Cat 2 meter on something that's Cat 3 or Cat 4, you're going to get hurt and your meter's going to get blown up. I've seen so many meters get blown up just because voltages were crossed in the disconnect. And we're talking on HVAC equipment. I've seen Cat 3 meters get cooked that way because it really needed a Cat 4. But like Louise said, somebody wired it wrong, It's a very distinct safety feature that will save you a lot of trouble.
Yes. So I am a big fan of that.
Yes.
And this is probably one of my other favorites topics to talk about, though, is
it's the funny words.
Looking at our meters, knowing if our meter is true RMS or if knowing it is RMS.
Yes.
So I want to just kind of break this down a little bit because I know that's a lot to be able to see on the screen right now. So if we are working in just a normal condition where there's no inverters, no nothing, we would expect to see a sine wave. And it would be a very consistent sine wave that we see over there on the left-hand side. And an average sensing meter, it just takes a reading every so often. And so that meter doesn't necessarily know if it's at the top of the peak or the bottom of the peak or the middle of the peak, or if there was a weird distortion. It just takes all of those readings and it averages it out. So RMS is also synonymous with an average sensing meter. Right. And that was the standard technology in a lot of clamp meters. And there are still a lot of clamp meters out there that are average sensing. And because of the fact that it didn't know when it was hitting the peaks and valleys, there's a lot of technicians out there that will tell you that they like an analog gauge.
Yep.
And it was literally because they could see if there were any distortions. It may not have been the actual numbers that they're looking at,
Right.
but it was the fact that they would see if there was distortion on that meter to help diagnose if something was going awry.
Yes.
Because we do have dirty power that happens.
Yep.
I will say, dimmer switches seem to be a huge culprit in houses when we're looking at things, right? We wind up with that dirty power, and that average sensing meter may not catch that distortion.
Right, because it's
But
averaging it out.
exactly. But what true RMS does is basically how it works is as it's taking its reading, it actually slows it down a little bit in the meter so the meter can analyze it. And so now when you start seeing those peaks and those valleys or that really one-off thing that might be happening every so often, you're going to be able to see that. And true RMS is going to be a more accurate read for you. So it is possible because I gave a version of this presentation and a guy came running up to me to go, I think I just figured out why one of my other text meters always seemed like it was reading wrong. It was literally because when you have a true RMS versus an average sensing, you can see on a square sine wave, you could be up to 10% high, but on a distorted sine wave, you could be 40% low. And then if you have a 5% distorted wave, 5 to 30%, you don't even really quite know where you're at there. So I think it's really important to know what type of meter you have. And then we have just a lot of our common applications that we have, right? So we're going to be testing an outlet. We can be testing a blower motor with it. Flame rectification, when we're looking at the in the like furnace world, that's a huge thing, right? Making sure that those aren't dirty, that they're reading properly, so you can do that with the right meter. Continuity, capacitors, board issues, and you can even test some of the gas valves with them. So it's just really important to know what your meter can do for you.
And continuity, you guys, in our world is super, super important because we cannot test pressure switches without it. Those are going to be your number one culprit, especially in a hot summer, is your sticky pressure switches. So you can't test them without continuity. Either the manufacturer will tell you if it's off and has continuity, it's good, or if it's off and doesn't have continuity, it's good, depending on the manufacturer. But you can't do that without a meter. You need to know the continuity. So make sure you're getting a meter with continuity if you are in the HVAC game.
Yes. So I think, I think we're running pretty close to where I wanted to be here. So I don't know if there were any questions in the chat that we needed to answer before we go in it, because I was going to show you a couple of the meters just so you can kind of understand that even not a manufacturer's, all their meters are exactly the same.
Yeah.
But if we had some questions, I thought this might be a good time to cover.
We did have a couple of things. We had HVAC Mac thanking us for being here, which is awesome.
Well, thanks for showing up.
And then we had a question about the model of meter that you were showing, which I found that it was the DL599.
Okay.
So I answered that one. And then it was interesting, I think, to Dennis, that even the season techs don't turn off our batteries or change them quite often enough. And I was just saying that it is the small things, especially that the season techs will miss.
Yeah. And that's why having a low battery indicator, because not all meters really show that either. I think most do now. It's something that I know is incorporated in all of ours.
Yeah, my old Fluke, like the big stand-up ones, they don't. And they're not the easy change batteries either. So like you'll find out that your battery is low when it dies, and then you have to send it away to have it changed. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then we have
try
a question
to make
about,
it easy.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just looking actually at this manometer. So you guys, this is a UEI manometer, and I just wanted to kind of show this because I was looking at it. This is encased, right? And it's got the magnets on the back, just like the meters do. But when you pull this, I never even realized this came out of here. And I'm serious. I've never changed the batteries in it.
Oh my.
So this comes out, and there's your battery hole that takes, double A's. So I'm going to change my batteries after this.
Yeah, it's a good practice.
about True RMS. Antonio was asking, do you recommend having one that reads True RMS? And I was saying, yeah, you don't
Yes.
ever want to be 40% low on your reading.
No.
And Antonio says, thanks for your time. So you guys.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
With us.
I will tell you, for the technology that is out there today, having true RMS, I think, is really important for your meter.
Yes.
I understand when we're looking at our test instruments, there is a variety of price ranges too that you're looking at.
Right.
Your HVAC techs, I don't ever want to hear any of you telling me you bought your meter at Harbor Freight. Okay. I'm going
Right.
to specifically call them out because that is not the type of meter that you need.
I
Go
love
to
it.
your local wholesaler or online wholesaler, but buy an actual HVAC meter. We
Yes.
design all of our meters with the HVAC tech in mind. So all of those features that I was talking about, like all of those symbols on my core HVAC meters, they were all like, I'll maybe, I don't know if I can. There we go.
Oh, we got one.
There we go. There we go.
I love these. I love these clamp meters. You guys, just so that you know, I have a whole array of different types of meters. And the one that is in my service bag that goes on every roof with me is my UEI. I love the way that the amp clamp works on this one. It's so different from other ones. They all look the same, generally. But the way that this one holds, the way that you can get in there with this one without touching live wires to get your amp clamp around wires, it's so much safer and it holds so much tighter as well. So just from from a tech telling you, I have a whole bunch of different ones, but this is the one that I want to use if I need that amp clamp because it is the only one that's going to hold tight enough for what I need it for.
Yeah. I'm excited. I really enjoy this line. If you see, we put these little badges on them to just kind of show you like at quick glance, right? So we tell you what the warranty is. We tell you that it has true RMS, and then we tell you what the category rating is right up front. We try to make it as easy. And again, all true RMS, all inrush, all have that low Z functionality, all can do your hertz and duty cycle. We like to do little things that make your life easier by having like magnets and dual displays, built-in test leads.
Guys, you just stick it on the unit and there it is. You're watching it. You're not holding it. You don't have to do anything. You just stick it on the unit.
Yep. And then, a backlight. So, I used to think that backlights were really only important when you were working like down in like, a basement or something like that. But they are invaluable when working on rooftop units, just like, illuminating the screen of our cell phone.
Yep.
And then, how many times have you tried to change the batteries in something and it has that little itty bitty tiny screw and you wind up losing your screw, right? So we actually did not a captive screws in there. And then with the importance though of
this one has no screws.
Yeah.
This is the 9-volt style.
The EM201. Yep. But yeah, we just try to do little things that make your life easier. Like, we were talking about inverters. If you get to our better and best versions, we do things like DC amps through the amp clamp. So that's a huge thing. That dual temperature, we add in a work light, we give you a little bit longer warranty. But actually the thing I am most excited about that starts on that meter is the fact that we do the little back probes on it. So you're working on those Molex plugs and you have to get into that really fine little area. We have the nice little back probes and they're kind of cool because they're not a slip on. They actually screw on. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but they actually screw on to the tip of your test lead. So you're going to create a really secure connection going on there. And then if you're doing a lot more of that commercial work, we actually have a meter that offers you 3-phase motor rotation testing and a motor imbalance test. So you get we just keep adding features. So if you look across our line, you can just see that we just keep adding features. We don't start switching out them. We make it super easy for you. And I know that was a lot of information. You can find all of this and more information about our meters specifically on our website, ueitest.com, or you can give us a call at our 800 number, 800-547-5740. One of the things that we're really work hard for as a company is we offer customer service support almost 12 hours a day between our Indianapolis facility, or our organ facility. So, ever in doubt about your meter or what it might do for you, you can always just give us a call and we're able to help you out with that as well. So,
I love that so much.
yep.
Most manufacturers do not offer that.
Right. So, and
that.
it is 12 hours a day, all stateside.
Yep. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
You guys that don't know or missed it, UEI has been around absolutely forever. What is it, the 50s, Louise?
So we started in 1954. Later this year, we will be officially entering our 70th anniversary.
That is beautiful.
Yes.
Wow. And still second generation family owned, you guys. This is the people that we want to be giving our money to as HVAC technicians. We want, we're owning our family owned companies, and we want to make sure that all the family owned companies that we can possibly buy from stay in existence.
Yes.
Helps all of us.
And it's been a great company to work for. So I've been very fortunate over my last 9 years to be here.
I love that. Company culture is everything. We talk about it a lot here at SkillCat.
Yeah. So,
all right.
All right. Any other questions?
Do you have any other questions while Louise is still here with us? The other thing is, Louise, can you just let them know if they needed to reach out to you about something, or if they wanted to follow you, where would they be able to do that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I forget about those things. So I'm pretty easy to find. My primary place that you'll find me in the social media world is LinkedIn. I know that's Jennifer's preferred platform all the time.
I love it.
But LinkedIn is probably the easiest one to find me. You just got to make sure you get my last name right. So Louise Kellar, Kellar. I'm the National Training Manager for UEI Test Instruments. If you ever wanted to give me a call our 800 number and they'll get you forwarded directly to us, or to me, or one of the voicemails. But those are usually the easiest ways to find me.
Very cool. And you guys, we have this recorded. This will be in your community tab where you found the link to join. It will be in your SkillCat app community tab. Probably tomorrow, I believe it is. We upload the recording is the following day. So if you do want to come back and reference this, or reference any of the models that Louise has shown you here today, or any of the information you didn't get to take notes on, make sure that you come back to the community tab tomorrow and check out that recording. Dennis Silvestri says, thank you from warm, humid New Haven, Connecticut. Great info. Thanks, Dennis. I'm in Maine, so I hear you right now.
Oh, man. I don't want to tell you, it's been gorgeous. I had some humid days here in Indiana and it was miserable. And I think I sent them all your way. Sorry about that.
You did. It has been over 90 degrees for 3 weeks in Maine. I've been here my whole life and I've never experienced more than 1 day in a row. So this has just been hell. And I'm an HVAC tech, right? So I got to go be in it. It's terrible.
Right. Well, I have to say I was pretty impressed. I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago and I got to be outside when it hit 120 degrees, and it's a dry heat, but nobody like, I think I like warm weather more than you, Jennifer. Like, I actually live in summer and like get really sad when fall comes.
Yeah.
So like, I'm like, this is my season. It's been like 80s and no humidity right now. So I'm a happy camper.
Yes, that sounds like heaven. And I'm traveling a lot this year too. I'm in Orlando 3 times this year in the next few months.
I will see you twice.
Yep. Are you going to Service World?
No, I won't be at that one, but I'll see you at the beginning of next year twice.
Yep. And then Vegas for excellence in March. I'm teaching at the symposium this year. So excellent. I'm going to only be traveling to hot places. I'm like, what am I doing?
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I just want to say for Angelica, who just popped in, hey girl, hey, your training is in the HVAC Chicks group as well. And this particular one, you just missed it. We're about wrapping up, but this will be available on the community tab in your SkillCat app. So don't miss it. Yep. All righty, you guys. Thank you so much for being with Louise and I. It's always great to get to teach with you, Louise.
All right. So glad this happened. I look forward to doing it again.
For sure. All right, you guys, we will see you at the next webinar that we have. And if you need to get a hold of any of us, any of us at SkillCat, you can email info@skillcatapp.com. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.